Today, Rick and I are here on the Oregon coast. We just wrapped up a workshop. We'll give you some sights and sounds and lessons learned from the Newport, Oregon workshop. Well, hey everyone, welcome to this week's video. I'm here with my good buddy and workshop coordinator, Rick LePage.
Howdy.
And we've had a really good time here in Newport, Oregon with a really great group of people.
It was wonderful. It really was.
The weather has been this mix of fog like this. We had even a little bit of rain, and it also gave us some beautiful light, a wonderful sunset. We had some great clouds over Hudson head. We had nice light at Thor as well, you know. And
when we came in here on Saturday, the weather looked pretty bleak.
Horrific.
I mean, it was looking like, what are we going to be doing?
Yeah.
Do hand puppets? You know, but you know, it's like one of those things you learn, right? You got to keep looking for the light.
Yeah.
You look for places to go, things to do, even in inclement weather.
We definitely did some planning for fog and cloudy scenes, forest stuff, things like that. But then the weather, you know, it's constantly shifting and changing. And that's one thing, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, in spring and in fall, it's constantly shifting and changing. You look at the weather in the night and it says it's going to rain the next day, and then you wake up in the morning and it says partly cloudy. And so we shifted and moved and tweaked and worked the weather and the light and had a really wonderful time here on the coast. We'll share some sights and sounds from that. All right, so some of that footage that we just showed, some of those images were with new equipment that we were testing. Rick's shooting with the Leica Q2 for the first time.
That was kind of fun.
I'm playing around with the Q3 and have been having a blast with it, both in black and white and color. I've been shooting with some newer Nikon, newer to me, Nikon DX lenses with the Z50, and did some fun kind of portrait work with a Viltrox 75 1.2, their Pro line.
It was a beautiful looking lens.
It's a really nice lens. Yeah, I'll be doing some some more talks about options for people shooting DX with the Nikon system before too long here, because there is some really interesting glass coming out for that lens. I also really like the 24 1.7, which we're actually filming this with right now on my Nikon Z30. So some fun things we practiced and played around with, along with the Air 3 drone. You saw a little drone footage mixed in there, which I'm really enjoying. I'm definitely going to keep that one and get rid of the Air 2S, even though I loved that drone too. So, you know, we've had some fun time testing some new equipment. We learned some lessons on this workshop. You know, one is the weather, which we already discussed earlier in this. You know, just never, don't get too concerned about if the weather's horrible. There's always things to photograph, and the weather can always turn. And sometimes, you know, when the NOAA forecast or the weather.gov forecast looks like just solid sheets of rain and clouds across the bar, that's drama, and you wind up with thunderheads and interesting light and
fog. We had beautiful afternoon shooting in the fog.
That fog photo you took of the Leica up in the forest in Cape Perpetua, it was something. We had a really, fog is an opportunity to me.
Yes, I agree.
For a different look at the same kind of scenes. We had a great time at Thor as well, and you know, one of the lessons there is research the tide tables, look what's going on with the waves. You can use multiple apps. There's a great app for surfers that used to be called Magic Seaweed, but if you search for that, it'll go by its new name. I don't remember what they renamed it, but it'll show you what the surf forecast for the next week in your location is. If you're coming to the Oregon coast, you want to photograph Thor as well, we've determined you want about a 7-foot high tide, somewhere in there, 6 to 7 feet at least, and then 2 to 3 foot swell is a nice, safe. We had the best conditions.
We did.
We've ever had at Thor as well. I think it was pumping, and it was doing its beautiful drop back into the blowhole scene, but there was almost no wind, which is a rarity there. A lot of times the wind is just whipping up any of the big splashes and blowing them back over you. There was almost no wind, and it really, the waves were consistent, long interval.
Yeah, and it was a great time. People got to use ND filters and learn how to do sort of that slow water movement stuff. It was a lot of fun. It was a great little sort of class, I think, that morning.
It really was. I think, you know, another little tip for anybody coming to the Oregon coast is eating at local Ocean in Newport. That restaurant, we wound up going there 3 times. It was so good.
And Newport Brewing Company,
another
really great place.
Really great place to go if you're coming into the Oregon coast. The Yaquina Bay Bridge here is beautiful, particularly if you find the little path to come under it, where we are right now on the town side of the bridge, the north side of the bridge. There's just a lot of wonderful things to do. The Oregon coast really never disappoints. You know, we had, in some of the inclement weather, we did some editing, we looked at images, and you know, there were just a bunch of great images from this group. We saw a lot of great new photographers coming into the workshop, along with some of our old regulars, and we just had a ton of fun. We also had a seagull rescue. Two
of our guys helped rescue a seagull that had a hook in its mouth.
It was terrible. It was down on the docks near the sea lions, and it had which another thing, sea lions were amazing here. It had a hook caught in its beak to a fishing line caught to its foot, and it couldn't move its head away from its foot, the poor thing. And our guys were down there photographing at lunchtime and saw this, captured it, covered its eyes with a lens cleaning cloth, got the hook out of its beak. One of them was bitten in the process and required a Band-Aid, and then the bird flew away. So I feel like our workshop did its good deed for this trip. So yay to Chris and to Jeff, and I threw up this photo that Jeff shared with us of the bird in question. So I'm pretty proud of those guys.
And stone bag.
We did have one. Well, we had a testament to Nikon, but a scary moment. We were at these really beautiful rocks in this cove at Seal Rock Beach, the first night of the workshop. And one of our participants, I won't name the name, set up his, I think it was a Z8 or Z7 II. It was a Z8 with a 24 to 120 on it, on his tripod, pretty high. didn't put a rock in the stone bag and turned to do something else and either bumped it or the wind blew. I was down a little bit below. I just heard the crash, and the tripod fell from about head height into rocks with the front of the lens, and he had a case magnetic adapter, a 77 to 82 magnetic adapter on the front of the lens. That's what hit the rocks. And the only thing that happened was it broke that magnetic adapter. It's kind of a miracle, honestly. The camera and lens were fine. We couldn't find a scratch on it. There was no malfunctions, nothing wrong. The lens mount seemed solid. I don't know. Amazing. I've had a number of Nikon incidents happen, both, salt water blasting over me with my original Z7, Charlie Johnson's drop of the Z6, I think, that crushed its front bayonet mount, and he had to have the lens repaired, but the camera was fine. I have my Z9 drop in Glacier, which I got to give Nikon massive kudos for. They got that fixed and returned to me in about 6 days. I did an MPS priority repair, but they did it really pretty darn affordably, considering that it was pretty massive. It dented the top cap of the camera to where I couldn't spin the back control wheel without prying it up with a pocket knife, and dented the back case of the camera, and they replaced the case of the camera for under $500 and got it back to me in 6 days. And I wondered if they were going to send me a new camera, but it had all my settings in it. So they clearly took the guts out and put it in a new box and body and cleaned the sensor and sent it back to me. So good on you, Nikon. The other thing I noticed is that people are getting a little mixed up in the Nikon, the new Z8 shooters with the banks. And I would say, if you're struggling with the settings changing in your banks, and I've had some emails from people about that, go back. I'm going to link right here. You just click up at the top. There's a link to a video about how the banks work in the Nikon Z8 and the Nikon Z9. Because I think people, they lose sight of the fact that they're not a stored set of settings. It's a bookmark, essentially, of where you last were in that particular bank. So, the way I set them up in my setup videos, you have to save those settings to your memory card. And when you're going to format your memory card, you restore those settings to the way they were before you started tweaking them all, format the card, and then save them again. It's this 3-step process whenever you're formatting your memory card: is load saved settings, format, save settings. It's like, that's because when you format your card, it wipes out the settings. And this is all just stuff that doesn't make any sense, but it's just what we have to do. So
it is Greek to me.
As a Sony shooter. But that's a little tip I've learned. And so, if you're having problems with those settings, run back through the setup video. I know but if you go into the customized controls, I think that's the biggest thing people have problems with. Make sure those are all dialed in, save your settings, and then don't accidentally nuke those settings when you're formatting your memory card. That's a key tip for the Nikon shooters. All right. So we've knocked off this workshop's how many? 7 workshops this year so far. We have 2 more. We're heading off to Yellowstone in a couple of weeks, and then we'll traverse from there to Moab, and we have great groups of people in those. And then we'll be taking a well-deserved break before the 2024 workshops kick off. Actually, we're going to be scouting in Scotland a bit in October, and that's a workshop that we can't wait to launch. So keep an eye out for that one. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching, supporting the channel. There's links in this video's description to tripods and filters and all the gear that well, to an extent, Rick and I use and recommend. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, Rick. This has been a great one. Woo!